the alliance of African multilateral institutions, starting with the World Bank and all the other institutions. Through institutions such as the Africa Development Bank, Africa Export-Import Bank or Afrexim Bank, Africa Finance Corporation, the Trade and Development Bank, Shelter Afrique Development Bank, Africa 50, and Africa Trade and Investment Development Insurance, Africa is steadily strengthening its capacity to finance infrastructure, industrialization, trade, housing, climate resilience, and economic transformation. These institutions are more than financial intermediaries. They are instruments of African agency, strategic sovereignty, and collective self-determination. Friends, we must believe in ourselves. That is why we strongly support the recapitalization of African Trade and Investment Development Insurance as a critical pillar of the new Africa Financial Architecture for Development. And I must thank the President of the Africa Development Bank, who is right here with us, for spearheading this effort together with all the other multilateral institutions. This is because Africa does not need more fragmented institutions. Africa needs coordinated financial firepower, capable of financing infrastructure, industrialization, trade corridors, and energy transformation in our continent on our terms. It is in this spirit that the proposed new Africa Financial Architecture and Development Framework, NAFAD, as we are calling it, seeks to align African multilateral institutions, sovereign investment platforms, pension systems, development banks, and private capital behind a coordinated continental investment strategy. Its objective is simple but transformative: to retain more African savings within Africa and channel them into productive, bankable, and transformative sectors of our economy. NAFAD is designed to unlock long-term domestic institutional capital by creating credible project pipelines, harmonizing investment frameworks, strengthening regional capital markets, and establishing mechanisms that de-risk strategic public investments. By lowering risk and risk perception and improving project preparation, African pensions and insurance funds will be better positioned to invest confidently in infrastructure, industrialization, energy, housing, and regional connectivity projects across our continent. And by the way, I am still talking about resources that are African, our own resources. Ultimately, NAFAD represents Africa's collective effort to build financial sovereignty by aligning African institutions, African savings, and African capital markets behind Africa's development priorities. And Kenya has already begun implementing the elements of this vision through the establishment of the National Infrastructure Fund, a platform designed to mobilize long-term domestic capital into strategic national projects. Already, our new National Infrastructure Fund has mobilized approximately $1 billion in the last 4 months, demonstrating the enormous potential that exists within African economies themselves. And this is money we have just mobilized here in Kenya. As government, we are deliberately partnering with the private sector to build confidence, reduce risk, and crowd in investment into transformative public infrastructure. Our objective is simple: to create credible mechanisms through which private capital can participate securely and profitably in Africa's growth story. Kenya's experience demonstrates what domestic resource mobilization can achieve. Over the last 3.5 years, we have mobilized nearly $4 billion locally for our affordable housing program. Through innovative domestic financing mechanisms, we are investing in housing, creating jobs, supporting enterprise, and expanding home ownership while restoring dignity to millions of Kenyan citizens. This experience demonstrates a fundamental truth. Africa can generate substantial development resources internally when institutions are strong, policies are credible and predictable, markets are trusted, and citizens themselves become active participants in nation building. Excellencies, infrastructure development remains one of the most decisive foundations of Africa's economic transformation and continental integration. Africa's infrastructure financing gap continues to constrain productivity, continues to increase the cost of trade, weaken industrial competitiveness, and fragment markets across our continent. According to the Africa Development Bank, Africa requires between $130 and $170 billion annually for infrastructure investment,